What's going on, my fellow rockers? We're here on the Quarm server during the Luklin era, and I want to talk about our singing modifiers. These are a huge benefit for us, and this guide might kind of help you make choices and decisions along the way as we get level 60 and further once Planes of Power comes out. So singing modifiers are kind of our backup to our other instruments. Very few songs actually require these, but when we do have them, they boost up these songs pretty nicely, and it's something that you might want for your solo adventures, for your group, and ultimately for your raids. So what are singing modifiers and what songs are they affecting? I'm going to go over some of just the basic ones of amplification, nibs harmonic, our psalms. Psalms are specific resistance songs. In this case, I'm going to use Song of Warmth, which is your cold resistance, just because that's the one I'm going to use. This gives us damage, shield, and cold resistance, and I'll go through that here in a second. But they're modified by your singing skills, your singing modifiers. Also using or showing Denon's Desperate Dirge, and then Brusco's Bombastic Bellow. So I'll kind of get into all these here in a moment. But additionally, when I talk about singing modifiers, these songs are affected by the skill singing. So it's not really your actual singing skill. The skill level of your singing deals directly with your missed notes. So that does not actually affect these songs, but what does are modifiers that we can obtain that will add together to give us a percentage that will then increase these songs or enhance these songs even further. So what does that mean? For example, most of us are familiar with, the song Cello's Accelerating Chorus. We can play this song without any instrument modifiers and still receive the benefit of being able to run fast, right? But when we add a percussion instrument, we can then run even faster, up to a certain amount, right? We are limited to a certain percentage here in the game. So same applies with our singing modifiers. Although we can sing just about all of these songs, granted some of our songs require certain instruments, such as like our Levitate requires a wind instrument. Certain songs will be boosted even further with singing. So you would know that by up here, the skill would be singing. So certain songs will do that. Not all songs, even though they say singing, like our identify song isn't going to be boosted any further. You can't identify any more than what you can identify with. But cool. So to kind of show what I'm talking about here, I did everything in percentages, and I decided to make this like little chart or guide to kind of walk through everything that I kind of know or understand about these modifiers. So I'm using all percentages throughout. That's because that's what's shown in the game, and that seems to be the easiest way to kind of explain this. So starting off, we have cap limitations. And here in Shadows of Luklin, we have a cap limitation of 360%. What does that mean? So a cap is a limitation. So as we obtain these different items and skills and things like that, they give us percentages and they add up to a total that is then applied. But the game hard limits us to 360%. So that is our cap limitation. So if we go beyond this number of 360, right, which is fine, but we're only going to receive the benefit up to 360%. So as I will show down below, if we get 420%, that's great, that's fine. We passed the cap, and that just means that we have hit the maximum, or that we have ensured that we have hit the maximum of 360, and that's what we want. We want as close as possible to the cap number, or hit it, or go just beyond it without sacrificing, equipment and whatnot to reach that. So we still want it to be viable, and this cap will increase to 390% in Planes of Power. And I'll kind of talk about Planes of Power items at the end of the video. So if you're interested in that, skip ahead. Pretty cool stuff. Yeah. So we have some, as we progress through level 60, these are all obtainable items that we can get up into this era. So first, I'll talk about the baseline. What is a baseline? Um, Baseline is a hard-coded number in the game. We can't change it. We can't modify it. And the baseline is 100%. Right? It's 100% at any level. It is always there. You can't change it. You can't manipulate it. It's just a freebie, and we show it here because it is in the calculations that are going on behind the scenes. And so that is a check mark. All you have to do is exist, and you get a baseline of 100%. Cool. Next is the epic weapon. Epic is a fantastic item to get up into this era. In Planes of Power, we can start looking at replacing this epic, or replacing the epic with other items, which I will talk about, as I said, later on in the video. And for the epic, we get 80%. So having a baseline of 100 and then the epic, these will add together to give us 180, and which will then be applied to our songs. So let's look at the epic right here. You can see that it is a all instrument types modifier of 80%. That includes singing. You can run your songs and equip it and unequip it to prove that, which I'll do later on. But what is unique about this item, it is the only item up into this era that when equipped gives you this modifier. So what does that mean? It means right now I have it equipped in my secondary slot. I am receiving the benefit of 80% without having to do anything else. All I have to do is equip it. So if I take it off and put it in the bank, well, I'm not getting that 80%. I could have it in my inventory. I'm not going to receive the 80%. It must be equipped. So as of now, it is the only item that we can get that when you equip it gives us a singing modifier. That's all I'm really saying about that. So cool. Looking back, once we get that epic weapon, check it off. Fantastic to have. Love it. I've always loved it. Keep rocking with it. So cool. And next, our song amplification. So this is a level 30 song that gives us approximately 90%. I also have a note here of Jamfest 3. This is an alternate advancement ability that gives us about 10%. Once you hit, Jamfest 3 points into it, you get about 10%. So about 3.3 per point, which would increase your amplify to 100% instead of the 90. So let's look at this real quick. When we look at amplify, so this is a 3-second cast song and lasts for 30 seconds. And when it is on, it increases your singing skill by 50% at level 30 and up into 100% at level 64 and 100% at level 65. So with a little bit of interpolation here, a little gonculation, it comes out to about 90%, right? Because this is a range, so we have to kind of figure it out. Through a lot of calculations of our songs and whatnot, we determined that it is about 90%. So cool. So when you play this, you sing this song, the buff is applied, your song is applied for 30 seconds, and now we have the modifier added in. So as long as we have this on, then our epic, and then our baseline, those all add together to give us a final multiplier, which we can then now twist in other songs and receive the benefit from. So only when this is on, right? So if that's off, well, I get no benefit. It has to be on. So when you have your melody rotation or however you're going to play your songs, I would recommend playing this first and then playing your other singing modified songs. So this song affects the other singing modified songs. So when I play this, it will affect my nibs harmonic, it will affect your psalms, it will affect your dirge, and your brusco's bombastic bellow. Cool. So what enhances this song? This is unique because we have an alternate advancement ability here under our class of Jamfest. So this says this ability allows you to sing your songs at a higher apparent level. So what that means is I am level 60 right now, but when I play the song, I'm playing it as if I were a level 64 or 65, right? It just means that it's giving me more power to the song, and it gives the song itself a tiny boost. Why is it important for this one? Well, we don't have another song that affects any of our other instruments, right? We don't have another song that boosts up our string modifiers or percussion, right? The only one we have is Amplify that only affects our singing skill. So cool. So given the note here, this does not allow you to sing songs that are actually higher than your level. So let's say Plains of Power was out right now and I'm still level 60. This does not allow me to sing level 65 songs or 64 songs, right? That's all it's saying. The songs I have are boosted and I'm playing them as if I were a higher level. So cool, and that's why Jamfest is pretty nice one to get when you can. Looking back at the chart here, when I talk about any Jamfest with these components with 100%, this is where I'm adding into these numbers on the side over here. Because I have it in my alternate advancement, abilities, I can't take it off, so I'm adding in that to a lot of my calculations as we go on. So cool. The song Amplify, get it, love it, great. Next is our Singing Mastery 3. This is another alternate advancement point or skill that gives us 60% when you get all 3 points into Singing Mastery. So that's about 20% per point, which will boost us up even further. So looking at that, right, Singing Mastery is broken out from Instrument Mastery. We receive no benefit to our singing modifiers with Instrument Mastery. So therefore, Singing Mastery is broken out. It's more special than the other modifiers. So this ability allows for specialization and improved use of your voice. Right, you become a songbird of your generation, and it is giving you those extra percentages, ultimately 60, that will then be added all together to really boost up your songs even further. And that's all that means. So Singing Mastery is typically what most people would try to strive for after Instrument Mastery, right? Our other instruments are used much more often and provide even higher modifiers. But once you start getting more modifiers in singing and all that, we kind of get this one next, especially if you're going to be rating, because it's going to boost up resistances. You can hit the 500 cap with these mods, and that is usually the next one in line. So take that as you will. That might help you kind of choose what to get early on as you start getting your alternate advancement points. So cool. With that, we can check it off once you get those. And getting all of the, getting these 4 will get you to 330% or 340 with Jamfest 3. So this is nice. This is 30% less than the cap, which is still fine. I'll show the math here in a second. That is kind of still negligible, right? You still want to hit as high or as close to 360 as you can. And there are a few additional items that we can get that will allow us to do that. The next is the Voice of the Serpent. This is a great item. This is dropped in Seraw Temple from Disciple Yelwin's. And this is a range or ammo slot item that when you cast this, it gives us the buff of Resonance, right? 3-second cast time and lasts for 12 minutes. And this increases singing skills by 60%. So this is pretty big, right? Big number. And what this means is this is different than your epic, right? Having the Voice of the Serpent, which is here, when I cast it, it gives us the buff of Resonance. This is what is giving us the modifier, not so much the item itself, but what the item does is gives us this buff that is then applied. So not to confuse you any further, the epic, right? When I equip the epic, I get the modifier. When I take the epic off, I lose the modifier. But with the Voice of the Serpent, if I put it into my ammo slot, it doesn't matter if I equip this or not. That does not give me the modifier. Only the effect of Resonance from the item gives me that. So now with the new Zeal and whatnot, we can cast this from the bag slot. So even if I open this up, right, you can cast from the bag slot. And this is all we care about, right? We don't get any stats from this otherwise, and we don't need to equip it. So cool. And that's why this is a huge advantage to get. And when we look at the chart here, this gives us a 60% and ultimately increases our modifiers to 390 when you include all the rest, right? When you include all of these, that's what it's saying. So brings us to 390. So this is above the Luklin cap, right? So we go above it, which is fine. It's great. It's just a clickable item. So we get the max benefit that we can get. And going into Planes of Power, we also get the cap in there once that comes out. So you're pretty much covered. And that's, again, saying you get that when you have all of this incorporated. So you need the Epic, you need Amplify, you need Singing Mastery 3, and the Voice of the Serpent to reach that number, right? You get 400 with Jamfest 3 when playing Amplify. So cool. So that's kind of the I guess the importance of having Voice of the Serpent, to really get squeeze out every ounce that you can from your songs. So cool. So how about the Shadowsong Cloak? So this is dropped in Akiva Ruins by Shay Vinatros, and this is a even better item to get. So let's get into that. This cloak gives us 90% once we paint it. And looking at this, when we look at the item here, fantastic for the stats, but also the effect of Harmonize. This is a 3-second cast, lasts for 12 minutes, and it increases singing skill by 90%. So just like the Voice of the Serpent, if we equip the cloak, that is not giving me the modifier. We have to click it and get the buff from it. So when I right click it, I cast Harmonize. Harmonize is now applied, and now this is what's giving me the 90% that we want. So also you can cast it from the inventory or even a bag. It doesn't matter. I can go here and cast it to receive that benefit. Also know that the cloak and the Voice of the Serpent, the buffs do not stack, right? So if I come back in, put it back here, and I right click my Voice of the Serpent, Resonance, it says that your spell did not take hold. They do not stack together. You get one or the other. So if you get the Shadowsong Cloak, you don't need Voice of the Serpent. So cool. And that's all it's really saying. And again, this is different because all we care about is the clickable component of these items, not being able to equip them specifically, right? And when we talk about the modifiers themselves. So why else is this okay, right? This gets us up to 420%. We're well above the cap in Luklin, and we're well above the cap in Planes of Power. But what this allows us to do is, I have a note down here, with the cloak in the Luklin era, bards can remove amplification from the rotation. So this results in a total of 330% as it was up here, which is 30% less than the cap, but that difference is negligible. So what does that mean? So having this cloak allows you to remove amplify from your spell bar, right? From your song bar, I should say. And they kind of show that real quick. If I look at my Psalms right here, these are my numbers that I got. And I'll go through this a little bit more in depth. But when you have the Shadowsong Cloak on with Amplify, this will give us 269 additional resistance and 39 damage shield. If I take away Amplify, I lose 22 resistances. So it'll give me 292, and it will drop my damage shield by 3, right? So I get 36 damage shield instead. So that is a negligible difference. Do you really need it? Hey, some people might need it for the group, but if you don't, not a big deal. And you can replace Amplify and use something else in your rotation, in your melody, to help you out. So I'll kind of get back to those numbers here in a moment, but that is what is meant by being negligible, right? And because we're only using one song that does that, I'd rather have, or at least most bards would rather have another song available for the raid. It could be, you know, area effect songs or what have you, instead of having amplify in your song bar. So cool. That's what the Shadowsong Cloak allows us to do. Some other notes real quick. As I mentioned before, the instrument mastery AA does not affect singing modifiers, and your singing skill level does not affect singing modifiers. It only affects how often we get a missed note and bring our song to a close. This is not saying that our singing skill level is any less important. We still want that, of course, and it's going to level up or skill up naturally as you play these songs. That's still good. So that's kind of all I wanted to explain with this and why it pumps them up. So now I'll kind of get into the numbers here. I was going to show all these songs individually just as we add in different layers, but I'm just going to go through the numbers here just so you can see what I got and you can compare your own numbers to what I have. If you see anything wrong, things need to be modified, please let me know. I will gladly remake these videos as I get more information. But looking at this, I ran these numbers on my own with these assumptions, right? I had no gear on, so all gear was removed when I ran these numbers. Nothing on, just naked and afraid. I was level 60, of course, and then Singing Mastery 3 and Jamfest 3 are included in my numbers because I got them and I can't just take that off, right? So I'm kind of working in reverse to get some of these numbers, but nonetheless. So looking at Niv's harmonic, right? Niv's harmonic right here. This is for your armor class. So maybe you don't need armor class, but maybe your tank wants a little bit more, or you're just looking for a song that will just help them out a little, you know, give them a little extra oomph for that damage mitigation. So this might be a song to go to. So when we look at this with no modifier on, we get a actually a 20 increase, right? A 20 increase here. So when we look at the song here, the base is 20 AC that we get. This 677 was just my AC, and you can just kind of see as I scale it up with the modifiers here what that kind of looks like. So starting, we get 20. When I add in Singing Mastery 3 plus the baseline, that popped my personal AC up to 715, which is a 38 increase. And then when I add the epic in, so I add the epic, now I get 56 armor class. When I add in the song Amplify, I get 79. And then when I add all that in plus Voice of the Serpent or the Shadowsong Cloak, you're going to hit the 360 cap limitation, and you'll get an extra, and you will result in 90 armor class with all of it together. So that's what that means. And so cool. If I remove Amplify, if I have the Shadowsong Cloak and I remove Amplify, again, from the cap, we get minus 30% from our modifiers for that. We kind of lose that, but which is just a -7 to your ultimate armor class, and you just drop down a little bit here where you get 77. So not too big of a difference there. About what, 13 armor class lost by doing that. So if you really need 13 more armor class, then add it back in. Cool. Looking at our psalms, right? A psalm specific to our resistances. This is our res and our damage shield. So we kind of look at this over here. Damage shield kind of starts at 11, which is what I have. And then our cold res by more so 75 at level 60. Kind of going through the math portion of it. So no mod. 75 res, and 11 damage shield when you play the song by itself. When you add in Singing Mastery 3 and the baseline, I'm now getting 120 added to that, and a damage shield of 17. These numbers on the side here are what my actual res is. It actually starts at 35 with a 75 added to it. That's what these numbers are on the side over here. But I'm getting 120 cold resistance when I play the Psalm of Warmth right here. So cool. When I add in the epic, right, this increases to 179 with 26 damage shield, and so on, as you can see, going up to the cap of 269 additional res and 39 damage shield. And so when you remove Amplify, if you have the Shadowsong Cloak and you remove Amplify, that's a minus 22, so you're going to result in 292 res that you'll get from the song, and your damage shield will drop down to 36, which is a minus 3. So not too big of a deal, but if you want the extra res, then add Amplify back in, and you're good to go. So this is huge. To have that is a big number, right? If you're hitting 314, I'm hitting 314, you need 186 additional res from your items, other armor items and buffs to hit the 500 cap. So that is very close, and it is a huge number to have, right? Same with if you didn't have Amplify, then you would need 208 to hit the 500 cap. So that's pretty nice. That's easily obtainable for most players, and why this is such a huge advantage to yourself and to a group when you play them. So cool. Lastly here, as far as my chart goes, is Dirge. When you play Dirge, pull it up here on the side. The base at level 60 is 535. That's confirmed. So this is an area effect. It hits 4 targets for 535 damage with no modifier. So when you add in Singing Mastery 3 and the baseline, this will increase to 856 damage. So that's a 321 increase from the base, right? So that's already pretty nice. And then you add the epic on top of that, I'm looking at 1,284 damage. With Amplify, 1,819 damage. And then with Voice of the Serpent or the Shadowsong Cloak, you're looking at 1,926 damage amongst 4 targets instantly, right? So that is very nice. So if you are messing around solo and then you remove Amplify, if you have the Shadowsong Cloak and you remove Amplify, you're looking at about 1,765 damage. Right, so that's 161 reduction, right, from this number right here. If you just take away Amplify, that's kind of cool. Huge damage, huge benefit, right? And so, kind of the last thing that I didn't talk about is Pure Tone. Pure Tone is our unique discipline. Pure Tone further enhances our songs past the cap, right? This is about 20%, and it lasts for 4 minutes when we use this discipline. In this certain case, we're looking at some significant damage when we play Dirge, right? I'm looking at numbers of 2,311. That's huge. And we get an alternate ability that when we get that, we can crit or critically strike up to 4,622 damage currently. That's pretty awesome. So that AA, let's look at it in your alternate advancement. Under the archetype, you can get Spellcasting Fury. So level 3 of this is huge, and you get a 7% chance of being able to critically strike. So with your songs, and this also applies to Brusco's Bombastic Bellow, and that's what these numbers down here mean in the yellow. Brusco's is a little different in that the base is 222 direct damage. But when the modifiers are applied, and I have confirmed it, you will hit 799. And when you have the Spellcasting Fury AA, you have a chance to crit almost up to the 1,598. You can almost double the damage. So pretty awesome. And why this AA would be kind of cool to get in conjunction with those songs specifically. So cool. And that is kind of it as far as what that means. Pure Tone, again, will push up resistances even further. If they're not hitting the 500, that's where that could come into play. Even more armor class, perhaps. I actually haven't tested that, but and is why I didn't add Pure Tone to the list up here, just because it does only last 4 minutes, and you don't have it all the time. It's over an hour refresh, so and why I didn't add it in. But it's still a huge advantage to have, right? So when else would you use this? You use it in your soloing. You use it in your soloing and you know, PvP, what have you. If you're kiting and you want to get some mobs down a little bit quicker near the end, you can blast them with this, and it just annihilates them, right? If you're gonna solo and do some of the crazier challenges, this is a great way just to knock down mobs a little bit quicker. Dirge does take mana, so it takes 800 per cast, so we're kind of limited by that in a way, so Flowing Thought comes into play. But regardless, that is the importance of the singing modifiers. I hope that kind of explains a little bit. And real quick, lastly, let's get into a little bit of the planes of power when we're talking about the 390 cap. So when this comes out, I made a list here of items of note. So when looking at these, right, looking at the top here, the epic is removed from my list here because we only receive the benefit of the highest worn modifier. So I can wear a bunch of, you know, modifiers, but I'm only going to get the benefit of the highest one that is equipped. So this is when we start talking about replacing the epic. When I look at the Songblade of the Eternal, this gives us 150%, right? So that's huge. When we add that with the base, Singing Mastery 3, and your Shadowsong Cloak, this gives us 400% with no Amplify or your Epic, right? So you can still remove Amplify and hit the cap of 390. So this is the only item that will allow us to do that, which is awesome. So long story long, you should really strive for the Songblade of the Eternal in order to hit that cap, right? And it's not necessarily that it's replacing the epic altogether. The epic still has many more, you know, benefits to it, but this is when we start really talking about replacing it. So the next item, we have the Visor of the Berserker. This is really cool. Fantastic stats on all of these, but this gives us 120 to our singing. So when we add those together, we get a total of 370 with no Amplify or Epic. Because when this is equipped, it's going to, it's a higher modifier than the epic. So this is what will be calculated, not your epic, right? They calculate the highest. So cool. A 370 is, you know, 20% less than the 390 in this era. So you're not hitting the cap, but if you want to, then you add it back in, and that'll get us up above the cap again to 460. So you would probably use Amplify until you get the Songblade of the Eternal. Two other items here. Abalone Engraved Tribal Mask. This gives us 100% to our singing, and added together it gives us 350. So it comes down a little bit further, but fantastic mask. Flowing Thought 3, pretty cool. But with no epic or amp, right? So you probably need to add in Amplify, you know, with your Jamfest 3 to get up to the 450 above the cap and receive the full benefit from your songs. Same with the Crown Staff of Anguish. This is 100%. Added together, it's the same, except this is in your primary or secondary slot. So you can use this in conjunction with the epic and receive a little bit, you know, more of a boost, which gets us to 350 with no amp or the epic. But if you add them back in, or at least just Amplify, you'll go over the cap. Same if you just added in the epic and not Amplify, you'll hit the cap with these. Or sorry, you will not. Why? Because it's 100%. That's higher than 80, so this is what will take precedence. So sorry. You would need to add in amplify to get beyond the 390 cap. So some items of note, still great to get. Stats are just amazing on all of these. And yeah, so hope that kind of helps out. Again, if you see any errors or you want to see something different or modifications, please let me know in the comments, or let me know in game. Always, I love talking about Bard stuff all the time. And yeah, get back to the grind. And with that, we'll see you next time.